Hello. So, welcome back to All Things Teams with Ro and Nadia. And today we want to share something with you that, well, first of all, if we had $1 for every time somebody mentioned the word accountability to us when we're working with teams, we would be very rich by now, wouldn't we?
If only.
Yeah, if only. So as a team coach or somebody working with teams, what we want to explore is how you can help the team members get accountability from each other because that's often what they want. They want that accountability from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. And before we dive into that, I'd just like to
Hmm.
illustrate this with a story, with a personal story
Okay.
in my previous working life. When I was working rural, one of our contracted employees always turned up late for work. And as you can imagine, the team got really annoyed by it, and they really started to question her commitment, and all sorts of stories going in the background. So even back then, even though I wasn't a coach, I just decided to have a conversation just to, out of curiosity to find out, what was going on because she worked really hard to get that position in the first place. So I
Yeah.
was really amazed by what was going on. And it was a bit of a process, but eventually the truth of the issue was that she had to wait each morning for all the men in her household to have their shower first.
Wow. So, in essence, it had nothing to do with her dedication and care for the team at all, then.
No, not at all. That's right.
Yeah.
And what you point out there, this care, like it's one of the most common biases that we as humans, we're all very human, but we do it and we make it about ourselves. We are quick to blame the other, perhaps even thinking that it's our fault or something's wrong with us, that she's not showing up. Whereas it turned out to be such a loaded issue, right, for her. And
Yeah.
once we got to that realization, is really where the team got to have a lot of compassion for that and
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that word compassion as well. And it's such an interesting story. So maybe let's start by unpacking what we can learn from it. And why is it that so many teams struggle with accountability? Because you set goals, you assign tasks, everybody agrees and nods in the meetings, but still things fall through the cracks. Deadlines slip, and you get this sense that nobody really is truly owning the outcomes.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we hear all the time. And as the story actually shows, that it's not just a lack of dedication,
Yeah.
discipline, or even communication, right? Often it's because we're only trying to fix sort of that surface. So instead of addressing the deeper layers of how people operate, both individually and as a team, is quite often overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think often teams mistake ticking things off a list as accountability. It's kind of they move it from being something that's a process into a task. I've ticked it off the list, therefore it's done, and we've all agreed to it, and we can all move on.
Right, that's right. And indeed, and accountability is actually part of the team culture, right? It's not just on the surface of ticking boxes. And the culture is shaped as much by individual and collective beliefs, identity, purpose, as well as the environment and behaviors and capabilities in the team.
Yeah, that's interesting because obviously, as you know, I co-wrote the 50 Top Tools for Coaching, and that sounds very similar to Robert Dilts' logical levels. So, and obviously those logical levels could be useful in helping teams create and align around that accountability, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we use those models, and you even wrote about it in our team coaching, right? So the model starts with these really basics, like the things that we can actually notice on the surface. So, like the environment, where and when does the team operate, and do they create real and virtual spaces where accountability is actually visible? The second level is behavior. So are we tracking what actually gets delivered instead of, good intentions to get something done? Do we use SMART goals, like the ones that we can time and measure and really track outcomes? And are we making those throughs on them, not sort of, nice to have, but
Yeah.
really as something that we do. And then thirdly, in that level of, sort of on the surface, the capabilities. Does this team actually have the tools and the skills required to do the job, right? And how are they trained in prioritization, communication, self-management, all of those sort of things that we can actually learn.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because this morning I've just been doing some work on outside in and inside out, and that sounds like very much the outside in. And then obviously as the model evolves, you then go inside out, where you start to look at things like beliefs and values. What is it we believe about this team that is going to make it succeed? How do we actually create a mindset and shift the mindset so that we will succeed? And it's also things like, what kind of things do we value as a team? So getting really clear on what those beliefs and values are, and then that kind of leads nicely into identity. How do we identify as a team? When we talk about the team, do we talk about it as a successful team? Do we talk about it as a team that you can count on that to deliver what they say they're going to deliver? And so, by understanding how the team identifies, that then gives even further insights about how they see themselves. And then that final piece of the puzzle, which we always talk about in team coaching, which is purpose. What is the team there to do? Why does it matter to this team? And even if it's a purpose that maybe has been given to them, because let's be realistic, in organizations, that's typically what happens. Using what they've learned about their beliefs and values and their identity, how can they identify with that purpose that makes sense for them? So we get back to that sense making and meaning making as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And it's really all about, again, the narrative, the story, like what gets told, that forms to a certain degree its culture, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's great. And so how will this actually help the team get the accountability that they want of each other?
Yeah. So obviously bringing us back to where we started this conversation. So this, what's your role? What's my role as a team coach working with the team? And obviously one of the core skills that we all have, not just the team coach, but the team as well, is observational skills. So what is it you're observing? Ask great questions that then leads to insight. And then we talked about this on one of our other talks as well, which is about reflection and reflexivity, helping the team actually become more aware of what is happening within the team.
Yeah, fantastic. So in a nutshell, and I wasn't aware at the time, but it was a bit like what I did way back then, right? In the story that I shared, because
Mm,
once we knew the underlying problem, we actually then created the environment. So the outside, where she could start and finish later.
nice, nice. Yeah. So I love that story because it's kind of you weren't expecting you to say what you said. So how do we work as team coaches with this information, with the seven six logical levels that we've talked about? And keep it simple is always our rule, isn't it? Our heuristic rule of thumb, that you just draw a triangle, and then you have obviously the lower levels start with the environment. So it's that outside in piece, and then you work your way up to the top of the pyramid, which is obviously purpose. And then you can use that as a guide to direct the observations. So what are we noticing? Is this something that's about our environment? Is it something about our purpose? What are you noticing in this conversation at this moment in time? So it's quite a simple tool that you can use and very powerful at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. You can take it in many different
Yeah,
directions.
yeah,
Sort of use it to prompt, the type of questions or the type of observations or the type of reflection that you're encouraging.
yeah, 100%.
So, summarizing, I think, accountability isn't built in one meeting, right? Or enforced through pressure. It isn't about coming up with a long list of action items that, one by one need to be ticked off. It's part of it, but it's actually the accountability itself is built layer by layer. From clear expectations to deep values to this shared identity. It's the whole pyramid, not just the base.
Yeah, yeah. And I think creating that connection between the whole pyramid is about how the team thinks, acts, and performs. And you can use each of the levels to bring that accountability alive when you're working with the team so that they then have something that they can use when you're no longer in the room.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So, yeah, I think we would like to encourage you to reflect on your own work environment, and maybe sort of come up with, what level in that pyramid resonated most with you and
Yeah,
why. And what steps can you actually make today to get the accountability that you want to encourage amongst your team members?
brilliant, brilliant. So, as always with these videos, please like and subscribe, share your comments in the comments below, and we'll be back to you real soon with another one of Nadia and Rose chats about all things to do with teams. Thanks for joining us today.
Look forward to next time. See ya.